Hi there, Sandra here. Today I'm going to be doing two things in one video. First of all, I'm going to show you how to create a background pattern, but I'm going to be showing you then in your cut slot how to get it to be a pattern fill for letters or shapes or whatever, instead of just being a background pattern. So the first thing is I have my iPad and I'm using Procreate to create my design. Before you start to do this, think about the size of the designs that you are actually creating in the first place. If you're making a lot of scrapbooking pages perhaps, then you might want to do a 12 by 12 or a 30.5 by 30.5 background design or pattern design. If you do mostly cards, which are A6 or something like that, then there's probably very little point in you doing a 12 by 12. So decide first of all what size you're in need of and then create your page to fit that. So to create a new page, you want to tap on the plus and you want to create a new canvas. And this will give you lots of different things to use. Now I'm going to use centimeters and I'm going to use, I'm going to use 15 by 15. So the 15 that I put in has automatically come in here and it says 15 centimeters. Go to next and I put in 15. Now then you want to think about the DPI. Now there's no point in going above 300. Most people's printers can't cope with more than that anyway. You don't have to do 300, but it does mean that if, for example, you decide to increase the size of the design itself, the pattern within your project, you're pretty much covered unless you really oversize it. So 300 is fine, and it's telling you here you've got a maximum layer of 329, which I don't need. That's not a problem. So the next thing you have is the color profile, and I always keep mine on generic CMYK because I have a printer that uses CMYK. It makes most sense. Time-lapse settings are for if you are recording your process, which I'm not. Canvas properties say background color, or you can have the background hidden. When it comes to Procreate and PNGs, which is what I'm going to save at, I have the option to hide the background or make the background transparent within my project anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that. And just go create. And now it has created my 15 by 15 centimeter square for me to work on. In here, my layer panel, you can see background color. If I tap that, I can switch the background color off and I have a transparent background. So all I do now is create the design I want. Now, one of the wonderful features of Procreate is the ability to have brushes, which are not only brushes, but patterns. And I have various brushes in here under various categories. I have got glitter, for example. So I could use a glitter brush and there we go. That's fun. I could change the color to this, to something else, make that a really dark purple. I could make these smaller and do that. Okay. A little bit in there and a little bit in there. I'm actually quite happy with the way that's looking. If I put the white colour on the background, you can see it a bit better. And because it's white, I will keep it there because obviously your printer, well, in most cases, doesn't print white. So it's okay. You can leave it on there. It doesn't make any difference. Make sure it is a pure white though, because if it's not pure white, then you might be printing a very pale colour that you don't actually need to print. I've got that type of brush, but I've also got things like objects. And these are things that I have just created in my brush folders that could be lots and lots of different things. I might have paw prints, so let's go for a black and let's do some paw prints over here. Make the paw prints a bit bigger. So I've got some variety. Let some of them hang over the edge and make the size a bit bigger again. So I'm just going to switch off the background because it really doesn't make too much difference. And then what you do is you come up to the wrench here and you go to share and you choose PNG, and then you share it to wherever it is that you wish to share it, and it will give you all sorts of options in that to do it. So that's how you create your background design. I've just shown you how to create a background pattern or a pattern fill in Procreate. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's imported into Shortcut slot. So I can click on File and I can do a place image if I want to. And on my desktop, there it is, untitled artwork, and I can open it and wait for this to open. And there it is, and you can see it is pretty much 15 by 15. Now this particular file, let me just move this to one side a second and get the info on this. That is 5.4 meg, all right? So it is a relatively large file, and that is something that you do have to bear in mind. Now you could do it at a much lower resolution. I did this one at 300, as you saw. A lower resolution would give you a smaller file. I believe if you save it as a JPEG, you'll get a smaller file as well. Okay. So the next thing that you have as an option, if I just do a shape, actually I'll just go to the library and pick a shape here, just do a circle, make that a lot bigger. Okay, now if I go to the pattern fill, I've got color there. If I go to pattern and I want to use that pattern that I just created, go to my patterns and use this page here to import the image, click on open, and that will open it up, and select that, and I can do a preview, and it will eventually give me a preview of what it looks like. Now it's repeating that pattern because it has downsized it to 1 inch. So it's okay as a background pattern, but that's giving you, if that is duplicated so much in that particular area as it is, that's a very large file when it doesn't need to be that large, isn't it? But to make it bigger, I would simply make these two match and do a preview, and then it will give me the sort of pattern that I'm after. Now I'm going to show you what happens if you make an image which is much smaller than that, and let's see what the difference is. Now that I've shown you what the 15 by 15 does in Shortcut slot, I'm going to open up another size. I'm going to make this one 3 centimeters square, so press the plus on here, change it to centimeters, 3 next, and then 3 again. So it's almost 3 by 3. It doesn't like it exactly, but that will do fine. And it's got 300 DPI still, so create that. So come in here and choose a different pattern, because otherwise I won't know which one's which. I just did that and I couldn't differentiate between the two. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And I'm going to send that to my laptop once again. I've sent the latest pattern, the 3 centimeter square one, to my laptop, and I can actually drag it and drop it in there. I don't have to import it. So I'm going to draw another circle of approximately the same size. It might be slightly bigger, doesn't really matter. Let's move that out the way. In fact, I'm going to delete that because I don't need it there. Okay, so I'm just going to take that out. And this one here, I am going to go for pattern. I'm going to go down to my patterns and I'm going to import that very small pattern that I did, which is just out of view of the recording, I noticed, but I'm just going to open it. Here it is. Select that and now preview, and you can see it's doing exactly the same thing because it is 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters, right? But this one was made so that it was a 3 centimeter at 300 dpi. So I can probably still make it bigger and still get a decent pattern. So let's make it the same proportion as the other one was when we made it bigger, just so we got a realistic thing. And there we have it. We have our squares and we have our actual pattern in place. It is 283 kilobytes instead of a couple of meg or so. And that is a very big difference when it comes to saving your item and the amount of space that it takes up in a program and so on and so forth. And also affects how fast or otherwise your software will open. And that is regardless of what software you're using. Some software is better than others at using large images, but basically you don't want to bung up your software with too large an image file if you can possibly help it. So you don't have to do an enormous great background unless you are doing a much larger design, and then you might want a larger file. But if you're doing cards and things like that, you probably don't need to do it as much. I could come in here, change it again, and make this much bigger. Let's go for 24 something and preview that, and you can see that is what you're going to get. So click on OK. Now if I put this into view actual size, you can see what you're going to get. Now this one obviously is blurry because I was doing bokeh lights rather than sharp lines in the first place. So you want to bear that in mind when you're choosing your images, when you're making your images. The size of the file is going to make a difference to the speed of importing. It's going to make a difference to the quality of your design. But if you're doing small stuff, don't go overboard with huge great files because you won't be doing yourself any favors. Now what I'm going to do is do some letters. Going to write hello in there. As it happens, it's already set to a pattern fill, but I'll change that in a second. Let's change this to nothing. This wants to be a compound path or a union path, depending on which software you normally use. Compound and union paths are the same thing. So this is now a compound path. Now in this particular case, it doesn't make quite as much difference because I don't have any overlapping letters to cut into each other. If you were doing a script text and you had lots of overlapping little bits, then you would most definitely want to make this a compound path now. So what I want to do is to put a pattern in it. So my patterns come up that are within Shortcut Slot already, and I've got a folder saying my patterns. So if you want to add a new folder, you click this one here. If you want to add a new pattern page, you click this one here. And I want to go to downloads, and here we go, and click on open. So it's now into my pattern folder. Now I do recommend that you don't keep lots and lots of patterns in your pattern folder. Keep them in a file on your desktop. Don't keep them in a pattern folder in Shortcut Slot. Lots of heavy duty, really big files slow the software down. Much better to keep it on your desktop. Keep it somewhere where you store your files normally and just import it from there when you want it. I've got my hello selected. So I'm going to select this pattern. And I'm going to make the pattern a bit bigger probably, but I'll preview it first. Because you've got all these very small dots and I want bigger ones. So I'm going to make the size of the pattern bigger. Make sure I make it go up by the same amount on the width and the height and do a preview, and I'm happy with that. So click on OK. I'm going to make it a bit smaller so it actually fits on my page, and I'm going to zoom in like so. There we go. We can see it a lot easier now, can't we? Go to my wrench here. You can see that it is a cut. So what I want to do is to set that one to print only. So now this is going to print, and that's all it's going to do. I want to come up to the effects, and I want a shadow layer on it. And I'm going to do an outline shadow only. I'm going to make that black so we can see the line. And I can make it as big as I like. And if I do that, it makes a whole bubble around it. So that would be very useful if I were doing something like stickers. Now, if I click on the print and cut outline, this is going to make it a cut line. So I click on OK. And then when we go to the preview, you can see the black areas are the printable, which is our lettering. And then the cut line is the red one on the outside. So that is all done. Now, if you wanted to, you could come into the colored layer, this one here. We can come in this one and we can make the outer line that's going to be printed a lot heavier. There we go. It doesn't affect our other outline. If I want to, however, I can select that layer and I can go up to path this time, and I can go to offset path, and I can go to inset offset, and I can make the inset bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it gets a lot closer around that outer line. So I could, if I wanted to, make it a lot smaller of an offset. So I click on that, and then we've got a closer offset. It's not one that goes directly around the letters, but that's how you put the color into, or the pattern I should say, into your text. You can do this with any shape that you can give a fill to. So if you've got circles, hearts, or whatever, you can fill them with pattern by using the very same method. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Take care now.